This is the GMS Magazine podcast, and this is Beyond Gaming, a podcast all about board games, role-playing games, the people who make them, and specifically the people who actually want to publish and write their own role-playing games. And this sounds like an awful lot because I am Paco Garcia. I have been Paco Garcia for the last nearly 5 months since we recorded. Chris, welcome back.
Yeah, hello, this is Chris from DSX Machina. First of all, a little shameless plug. My latest book, The Armory, came out at the time of this recording. It came out a week ago. It's already achieved its silver badge on ttrpg. And it is, I wouldn't say it's not related to what we're talking about, but I'm sure this is going to pop up in the conversation today, just about what games like this represent. So this is almost entirely OGL. It is, if you want to add your own content to your own gaming. I always make jokes about how many guns I created for this game. The final count ended up being 750.
Yes.
And 600 vehicles.
You know that you could get a honorary membership to the RNE, in the United States just for thinking for so long about weapons.
Oh, yes. I ended up talking to quite a few content creators about firearms and getting some interesting advice and going down a lot of deep. I know more than I'd like to know, but that's part of that ADHD, that autistic brain of mine that needs to know way too much. Like I had made a statement a long time ago when I introduced a carbon crossbow and a compound longbow to Ultramodern 5. And I said to myself, I doubt that there have been huge strides in crossbow technology in the last 100 years. And then after about 5 minutes of research, I found out there have been huge strides in crossbow technology in the last 20 years. And so I had to expand the subsonic category from 2 entries to 40, because it turns out there's a psychotic German guy who is making the craziest subsonic weapons. So I had to include, and they are being now mass produced. So there are Gatling crossbows and pneumatically fired, and the kinetic power of these things is insane. So of course I had to include them all. And of course I had to pay artists. Paying artists, which is something we're going to be also talking about, was difficult. There are, I mean, for a lot of, which we'll also get into in later episodes, we talk about hiring artists. It's very difficult to find artists that are on a budget. I have 2 artists that are lesser expensive, but it's very difficult. It took a lot of searching to find them and then to pay them and then get work. But that creates an inconsistency. But when you're dealing with supplements, I don't care about inconsistencies in artwork. I don't care the fact that I have 4 different illustrations in the firearms section that are visually completely different from one another.
Well, actually that is something that we need to talk about in the art direction episode. Okay, for the people, let's do a little bit of recap, because we haven't recorded for months. And we haven't recorded for months, and people will have forgotten about this, because moi, and myself have actually completely changed lives. And I moved. For those of you human beings who may not know this, I was living in a wonderful place called Valencia, which is in Spain, in the east coast of Spain, roughly about halfway, very much in the middle. But because I was working in a complete and utter shithole of a place doing e-learning for a cybersecurity firm, which, by the way, had their own website hacked just under a week ago, which I think is it's absolutely hilarious to think that a cybersecurity firm that's, signing contracts with the Ministry of Defense has a website which is WordPress based. Which is like, you're asking for trouble there, mate. But never mind that, I don't care anymore. I was working there, but due to a fair amount of searching and a little bit of luck and an incredible amount of charm from my part, I got a new job that actually pays decent wages, but it is in the beautiful and magnificent city of Barcelona. And now I live in a little, well, not so little town, it's a big city, because Barcelona, I think, is about 1.7 million people, which is huge. But the city I live in is called Badalona, which is literally adjacent to
Babylona?
Badalona. Yeah,
Oh, Badalona.
Badalona is literally adjacent.
Baldador.
Yeah, to Barcelona, and it's about 200,000 people. And I
Jeez.
am like, I know, and I am like 40 minutes tube ride from the center of Barcelona. And that is why we haven't been able to record, because I had to move my things, and I haven't moved everything yet. I've managed to set up a studio more or less here. I don't know what the audio quality is going to be, because this room, which I can show you a little bit, it's, I have a few games here and there. I have the new little studio that I have set up on that little desk in there, which you're going to see because my monitor is on the way. But I already have a few games that I've
Badalona
brought.
looks beautiful.
It doesn't look too bad, but there aren't really many soft surfaces other than the surface of my heart. And that means that there is an awful lot of reverberation. So I don't know what the audio quality is going to be like, but at least we're here. We can record. And look, I have a lever.
I was going to ask you what that was.
Nice.
I was staring at that winch
Okay,
for a while, and I'm like, at some point I'm going to ask him what that winch is. Okay, so it's a shutter.
Yeah.
Well, at least you'll get some privacy. Get the lights out.
Oh, yeah. I do give me privacy. Otherwise, I will have been arrested already. So yeah, no, that's where we are at the moment. So that is why we haven't been able to record. But humans, believe me, we haven't forgotten about you. We're going to continue with Beyond Gaming over the next couple of weeks, and we're going to have an incredible amount of material that I want to show you. And one of the reasons for that, one of the reasons why I wanted to do Beyond Gaming is because I honestly believe that everybody should be able to have all the resources to publish and write their own role-playing game. On top of that, as you may know, I work with Maple on Board Vanguard, which is an absolutely fantastic licensing agency run by my friend Michael, who is one of the kindest and Greekest souls on the planet. And they do have an awful lot of newcomers to the RPG scene that they license and want to help. I bought last December in Dragonmead, and I am not exaggerating, about 600 euros of indie RPGs.
Wow.
Of people that when I am looking at those games, I'm thinking you need some help, with organizing your books and taking care of your layout or whatever. And I want this podcast to be for MOBs, creators, and any indie out there who wants to have their game published. Whether it is for profit or not, it doesn't matter. But everybody should have their game published if they want to do it. So that is what this podcast is going to be all about. But today, because we are, Chris and I haven't spoken. We haven't spoken for a while, haven't we? So we.
Well, obviously we've spoken online and on text, and we've spoken about some personal things and about deeply political things, as we often do. Obviously, there was not something I'm personally associated with, but my province Canada had one of the worst school shootings in 20 years, which means that it was surpassed by someplace in America already. I have to throw that in. It's kind of an obvious one. Someone says, "Oh, your worst school shooting." It's like, and then people are making a lot of really aggressive statements, and I'm like, remember, in between our last school shooting and this one, you've had 500. And for us, it was bad. It was in a town that was a few hours from here, which seems like a long way in European sense, but in Canada sense, it is quite literally 2 towns over. So it would be like having a mass shooting in a place 20 minutes away. 3 hours to 20 minutes away in Canada. So Tumbler Ridge, population of 2,400 people. And like everything, we're dealing with events like these. People seek singular answers. They need to have their answer. It's all this fault. It's all because of this one thing. And it's difficult to resolve the fact that there are multiple contributing factors to things like this, and it's difficult for people to resolve the undefined, or maybe we'll never know. And to this day, for example, they're still investigating potential motives for everything. And people say they know the motive. I go, no, you don't.
No.
You can't possibly know it. And I came to you, and I said some things that were reactive, and it's interesting because I spoke from a logical sense, and it turned out that even though I spoke about the fact that it was a complex topic, it turned out to be even more complex than that, which shows you how it is difficult for and kind of naive for people to place singular blames on things. You know, and it comes down to even when it comes to people who blame guns, say it's all guns' fault. I go, Canada has more guns per person than America, but we don't have the gun crime. So it's not the gun laws. I think if you actually put Canada's very strict gun laws into America, I don't think you'd actually decrease the gun crime in America by a significant margin.
No.
There was that very famous documentary, Bowling for Columbine, which people kind of dismiss as just a anti-gun. But in that film, for the vast majority, if he spends the majority of the film asking why does America have its gun culture? Why is it so obsessed with firearms? So it's a very complex situation, and that's something that you and I talked about at length outside of the gaming sphere. But of course, we were also talking about games, and like I said, I played SETI, which is one of the biggest games out there, and I just played Earth, and these are two of my favorite games I've played in months. I've usually been very dismissive of board games recently, so I'm very happy to say I played two very good board games.
This is the one thing that's actually getting me. It's very difficult here. I've managed to find a very nice little group of people to play role-playing games with. Mind you, it's a very bizarre group of people. I decided to go with looking for foreigners to play role-playing games with. So unsurprisingly, and I say unsurprisingly because it shouldn't surprise me, but it did because I couldn't find anything anywhere similar in Valencia. There is a whole gaming club which is made by immigrants. The whole thing is made by people from all over the world who came here to Barcelona to work, and they speak mostly in English. So my gaming group at the moment is composed by, because the lady couldn't make it, 3 guys whose names I can't remember. That's the truth. One of them is Russian. The other guy is Dutch. And the other one is Polish, raised in Australia.
Man,
so
that's a mix.
My team sounds like a joke. A Pole, a Dutch, and a Russian enter into a game.
Yes.
And we're playing Vaesen because, as you know, I am absolutely in love with Free League, and I thought it would be a very good game to get them introduced to something that's not, the mainstream D&D, even though they all play D&D in other groups. And they loved it. They are having an absolute blast, not knowing, because there's the one thing about Vaesen that people don't know what's about. They don't know what to expect. They hear about, Norse mythology or folklore, or Swedish in this particular case, and they all think it's going to be fairy tales, and they don't. They find it incredible how right and wrong they are at the same time. Because it's true that it's all about fairy tales and imps and trolls and giants and fairies, but bejeebers, they are way different than what you would expect, and way worse. So they're loving it, but finding a board gaming group is proving to be tougher, a lot tougher. Board gamers here are a lot more insular than role players.
Meaning there they don't play a lot of new games, or
both. There are a couple of very big organizations here in Barcelona that make weekly gatherings, and every single gathering can take about 150 to 200 people every single Sunday.
Right.
But they bring the games they bring, and people, once they know each other, they tend to play together. It's a very good area for people who don't have space to play at home, or simply is, this is my evening out, so I'm going to go out and play games. So you play where you play, and getting to know people, it's a little bit hard. It's not as easy. And also because they mostly get together on Wednesday, which is when I play RPGs. I cannot go. On Sunday evenings, which is when I'm like, this is my unwind time, when I watch television and think about not much and just relax for the following day. So I wouldn't want to go on a Sunday, but I've been twice. It's an absolutely beautiful experience, very, very good, but it is hard to find people who will want to play, on a Saturday evening, or on a Saturday afternoon, or on a Friday, or on a Thursday, or on a Tuesday, or basically any other day that's not Sunday or Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm going to be starting up my own group soon, and I'm not looking forward to seeing what the market's going to be like, around my friend circle. It's like, hey, we're playing a post-apocalyptic cosmic horror biopunk retro setting. Who's in? And just the D&D? No D&D, no dragons, just a biopunk post-apocalyptic cosmic horror. And
sorry.
No, just seeing what kind of interest I get.
Well, I'm hoping that after Vaesen, because I'm going to run. I run the adventure that came in the starter set, which Free League sent me. Let me show you. Because that one, I did bring that one with me. This, which is absolutely beautiful. It's really great. It's
nice.
It is very nice, and I hope this will serve as some sort of review, even though I haven't recorded my video review yet. But it's a very nice little set. The rules they have condensed to a little thin booklet that you can read in about a couple of hours, give or take. The adventure, it took me 2 reading sessions before going to bed to read it. And they have turned the bestiary into a kind of field notebook, so you can give it to the players as a player aid. So let me get it out, because I think it's worth showing. It comes with some very nice dice also. This is the bestiary. So
that's beautiful.
It is very nice. For those of you who are listening and not watching the video version of this podcast, this is about A5 size booklet, staple bound, full color, with loads of Johan Egerkan's illustrations that used to be in the big book and still is in the big core rule book, with a lovely cover in shiny coated soft cover paper. And it literally is a workbook. So in the initial adventure, which is very short, we played it in 1 session, surprisingly, and we did plenty of acting, but we played it in 1 session. When the players are recruited into the society, they are given this and say, just so you know what you're going to be facing, which I love, because it saves from having to show the core rulebook to the gamers every time that they face a new Vaesen. So that was very good, and that is what I've been playing over the last couple of weeks or 2.
Nice. I really, really am looking forward. I'm also a little terrified of getting back into role playing. I used to role play every week for 30 years, and they say there are certain skills that aren't like riding a bike. So I'm waiting to see. But as a publisher, it is frustrating as I have one book out, which is doing very well, and I'm going to finally get to my Kickstarter, which will still hopefully launch in March. And then I thankfully have a very small, tight-knit group of people. I have 2 or 3 artists I work. My bookkeeper is my wife, and that is basically the end. This new project we're going is collaboration between me and my artist. And thankfully, my artist does not have a social media presence. Segue.
I see.
Because when you have a larger company, sometimes you have to contend with what your contractors and what your employees say.
Yeah, that is quite a way, because we have 2 topics to talk about, and this is the first one, which was like, oh my God, why didn't anybody muzzle this guy a long time ago? A very long time ago. Okay, this is the gist of it. Somebody called, is it Ryan Dancey?
Dancey, yes.
Yeah, okay. He used to be the chief operating officer of...
Past tense?
Yes, Alderac Entertainment Group. Yes, the Legend of Seven Rings Alderac Entertainment Group, authors of many much loved board games for a while. And this man, who I have to say his reputation preceded him, because he's one of the few people in the role-playing game industry that after somebody spoke to me about him, I've had zero interest in knowing. Zero. And therefore, I never invited him to a interview or say hello and say, hey, be my friend in Facebook or anything at all. And my instincts have paid off, because he didn't have anything else to say than, oh, I think that AI is going to replace a lot of game designers, and I would be quite happy to use AI to generate games, because I can generate a game in one afternoon without having to deal with these obnoxious, pesky, bipedal organic forms, which are called human designers. Ugh. That's how I heard it in my head when I was reading the post in Facebook. He defended vehemently the use of AI as a design tool to create product that would be sellable to people, and that he would hesitate for about 0.0 seconds to use it for Alderac, and it backlashed like it deserved to backlash. And Mr. Zinzer, who I don't know either, but
ironically, Dancey is on my Facebook list.
Oh my God.
Although I had to check. He does not post there. It should be important. Like, he's not commenting. He hasn't commented there in a while. When the most recent post you have are birthday wishes from 2025, you know that this person has stepped away from social media. Zizner, however, is not on my friend list, and he has not responded to my friend request. But go on. I just wanted to make sure that people were that.
Yeah, okay. I don't have either of them. I don't particularly have that much interest either. But Zinzer did the most extreme damage limitation maneuver and sacked him. He just sacked Dancey and said, hey, piss off, mate. I don't need this shit. And I believe they're friends from a very long time ago. But obviously, if you go out saying, fuck human beings, then somebody else is going to say, no, fuck you, and get rid of you.
I will counter with a potential alternative conversation where, because I don't know who Zinzer is, there's an equal possibility. He's like, I have to get rid of you for damage control because you said the quiet part loud. Because this is coming into something that was going to relate to the second person we're talking about, but still focusing on Dancey. The issue I have, obviously, is that whenever a company cuts ties with somebody who makes a statement about AI, being a little bit of a pragmatist and I would say even nihilist, I look at the situation and I go, okay, How many people at that company are using AI and just haven't been caught yet? How many people are? I know that there have been conversations with companies whose policy is there's a don't ask, don't tell, but if we find out about it, we will respond accordingly. And it's all about we don't like as long as you don't get caught, you're fine. And that seems to be something that I know it happens. I know it's pervasive, and it's an unsung lie, an unsung, oh, sorry, unsung lie, unsung truth about the industry. And that's how it's not just been AI. It's been a variety of things. Back in the old days, there's always been things that if you use this, if you commit this, if you think this, that's fine, but you just can't say it out loud. What's been happening in America, especially America, is that a lot of people feel somehow emboldened to say things that they know will get them into trouble, that would have got them into trouble a long time ago, but they think they can say it without getting into trouble today, and then finding out that they're very much mistaken. This is not just a conversation with AI. This could be a political conversation. Somebody feels they can say something, which goes into our second person, but we'll talk about that in a second, where they feel that they can say it, they should be able to say it, and they should be able to say it without getting into trouble. And this has counseled numerous people, especially in our own game industry. And we had a conversation with Jamie Stegmeyer from Stonemeyer Games, and one of the questions I asked him is, how do you weather these storms? Because, you know, being a main company, he gets accusations all the time, and he somehow manages to mitigate them and deal with it. And he's always survived and come out on top. Speaking of, we just picked up Vanguard, which is his biggest game that's come out in a long time, a game that he actually created himself, which is not very common. So I'm looking forward to talking about that in the future. But go ahead. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well,
before I get on to my next topic?
Well, I think there are many things to say about it, because you've gone through a number of topics. Firstly, I think you're absolutely right. Plenty of companies are using AI, and as long as they don't get caught, they don't give a shit. I think that is going to be the case for the foreseeable future, unfortunately, until the use of AI is just either accepted or somehow taken away, or simply the market stabilizes into the people who use it and people who don't use it, and people who buy stuff created by AI and people who don't. Even there has been also from that side of things, and this is just a small tangent, but there was also controversy in the Board Game Geek recently, because the new version of Agricola received an incredible amount of low scoring because the cover was allegedly, because I haven't really studied it well enough, created by AI, and they are using AI within the new version of the game, or the new edition of the game. So there was a backlash on that. But of course, we are also seeing the backlash of people saying, oh, wow, look at that beautiful AI generated cover, and artists having to say, yeah, no, I did this myself. And how the hell do I prove that now?
It's Awaken Realms doing, of all the companies, Awaken Realms getting dragged into this, which is interesting too, because we know that Terraforming Mars, one of the editions, has openly admitted to using AI art, and considering the recycled assets that they were using throughout their various editions, at no point was a surprise. Unlike a game, like I said, playing a game recently with Earth, which has an incredible amount of what appears to be original artwork. And then you go back to the clip art, photographed, Photoshop photographs, and reused and public domain images that Terraforming Mars used. Because when you're making 800 cards, it's tricky.
But I think that's the justification that people are using to use AI, and I don't bite it.
Like I said, companies have been able to do, like I said, as someone, like when I did Naramata and I had 60 or 70 tourist cards, I put it as a pledge that you could buy your own face on one of these cards, and then I could pass that money on to the artist and say, okay, here are all the people. And so I had an artist who did, I can't remember who they were, but they went and they did illustrations of every single. This was 8 years. This is before AI, so obviously this person couldn't have done that. But they made there are ways around it. And once again, if you look and find it, you can find it's getting more difficult to find, but you can still find more inexpensive artists that are willing to do things on a lower rate. It's tricky, and we'll get back into that in later episodes. So for me, my problem, and I'll be honest, the temptation for me has never been money. Like I don't have the money to pay for this, so I'm going to use AI. It's always been, I need this because when I was doing the armory, beep, plug, I realized I needed a lot of illustrations of guns.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to artists and said, this is a very boring commission because I just need you to draw guns that exist. You're not drawing fictitious guns. And so I went to, and they gave me rates. And I said, I need to have 15 of these by February. And they could not produce it. I literally had to sort of going to find other artists that were willing to do these very, very quickly. And it was very frustrating. And that can be a timetable issue. Affinity has art from, it was all Nick Greenwood, but I had to bring somebody else on because Nick couldn't complete the work in time. I can understand a timetable issue, but when you're dealing with the budgets of these big companies, money is never a reason. It's an excuse.
Yes, and to be honest, even for small ones, I've seen people who said, oh, I need to do this because this thing has 400 illustrations. And it's like, yeah, you released a game about 8 years ago with nearly as many illustrations and you just did a crowdfunding. So, sorry, no biting it, but never mind that. That's also something that's happened. So we'll see what goes on with Alderac. I think I'm going to get rid of you because that way I can pretend that I'm not using AI. It's indeed a possibility, and I'm not saying that they're doing this. This is all allegedly. This is all hypothesis, so don't get mad at me. But it could be the case. It's plausible. So we will see. And yeah, it's certainly segueing into the segue that you were segueing earlier. Absolutely, people think that they can say whatever they want without any kind of consequences. And the Dice Tower found out that it is not the case anymore. And Tom also got rid, although he stepped out, of Sam Healy recently.
Yeah.
Oh.
So with Sam, it should be important to note that Sam is a core, I would say, founding member. It was something like people kind of forget that Tom Vassell, Sam Healy, and then later Garcia. But these guys were, I don't want to say the word missionary. I'm not sure that's exactly accurate. Working out of all places, South Korea, I do believe.
Yep.
And that's when Tom was got into heavy into board games. Sam Healy was involved in there as well. And when Tom came back to the United States, that's when he started to work on the Dice Tower channel. And Sam Healy was part of that. Tom is the founder. He's official. But for many years, it was three people. It was Garcia, it was Healy, and it was Vassell. Eventually, he opened the door for third-party content. And we had a bunch of really smart people that joined up. I say smart people because some of them are my friends, like Jason Peacock. And then I joined up, and I did about 12 videos for the Dice Tower over the course of a year. I was let go because Peacock and one or two other people were let go because he felt their videos were not of high quality. My videos were high quality. He said it was basically, it was a very, very unsubtle remark regarding the content. I was too controversial in the fact that I was, in fact, trying to approach game design and game critique in the same way that people would review video games or movies, which means applying a more critical eye and analyzing them as an art form. And I made a religious joke in my tapestry video, and that video was not posted, and I was let go at the same time. And Dice Tower was noteworthy for editing my videos. They would round any sharp edges, and so they would cut anything implying anything, and that's how it was. When I left, I did end up friending Sam Healy, and we had a conversation. And interestingly enough, he was kind of on my side. He actually liked the content I was producing. I never talked with Garcia or anybody else. I was friends with Peacock, so I knew why he was let go. And CM and I were, I would say, friends. But even though I knew that we had a very profound religious disagreement, I'm an atheist, he is very much not. Outside of what his fundamental views were, I did not know that until a certain someone that was very popular on the right wing of America was killed very publicly, a man named Charlie Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
And that became the firestorm right up there with, like, it was like, if it wasn't COVID or AI, it was politics with Kirk. That watershed moment where suddenly a lot of people were blocking a lot of other people on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I actually kept away from it. I didn't say, because I'm trying to limit them how much volatility I post. And Sam posted something basically saying, if you even allude to criticizing him, you're gone. And he made a statement that was very inflammatory, but there were people that basically said, he basically said, you cannot critique his message because he's dead. Like, he is now infallible and without, right? This was and then so several people in that comment basically said, I guess I have to go because while I denounce murder, I will continue to critique his message. And I actually ended up posting saying, I deplore the assassination, but I have a fundamental disagreement for his message. And of course, Sam just started blocking people. So he blocked quite a few people. And that's when our friendship officially ended, was during the Charlie Kirk thing. And that's when I realized that he was very much a fundamental right-wing Christian.
That's correct.
Tom, a lot of people I've talked to said Tom is in the same boat, but he is smart enough to keep his mouth shut. Because he knows his channel and his career will be in the tank the moment he opens his mouth. His rule, his channel says, no politics, no religion. I'll let you go on your statement, but I will have a follow-up to this in a second.
No, I was just going to say that, yes, that is absolutely correct. And I was just going to finish saying the thing you said. Tom is a lot more careful and wiser in the sense that he keeps his personal views away from the Dice Tower, not away from the way he treats people within the Dice Tower, because we know how he's treated some non-binary and trans folk who's worked with him in the past, and how he's kept, how he's treated some women, how few women there have been in the Dice Tower, especially publicly, how he got rid of Suzanne and Mandy at the drop of a hat just because, and they were the only two, public women in the Dice Tower for a very, very long time, how he got rid of Matthew Macaque with a non-apology afterwards. So yeah, I believe that he is very, very much in the same boat as Sam, but he keeps quiet and doesn't say anything because he's had a bigger brain. Because if Dice Tower goes off, basically the way of feeding his family also goes off, which would be, I have to say, quite tragic. Because I also have to say, even though I don't like the guy, he does a great deal of good for the world of board games. That doesn't justify some behaviors, and that doesn't justify some philosophies, but at least he does a great job for the board game community and industry.
Yes, and this is where people there's been some criticism in the comedy scene where Jay Leno, of all people, made comments saying about comedy's gotten too political, and people were calling him out, calling him a hypocrite because of all the Clinton jokes he made when he was hosting The Tonight Show. And this kind of goes towards where I kind of criticize Tom Vasel, where he says, we're not political, we don't do this, we don't do this, we don't do this. And I kind of look at it and going, if that's true, and what happens when you cover a game that is controversial, where you say, I am looking at it from the game perspective. And I feel that if you ignore its political message and ignore what it's saying, you run the risk of amplifying a political message by your ignorance of it. And I give a couple examples of that. Obviously, I have mentioned in some of my reviews, we just had a conversation about terraforming Mars and the fact that I really liked the games like SETI and Earth recently because they were competitive without you assuming the roles of hyper powerful free market economic entities. And Terraforming Mars, you are very much playing an extremely overpowered free market entity. And that Terraforming Mars, despite having science around it, is in fact an Ayn Rand supporting propaganda piece for free market capitalism. And the fact that I find it ironic that games like Viticulture, other competitive games put out a cooperative variant, but Terraforming Mars has never put out a co-op variant. In fact, all their expansions have been making better corporations. So that there is a political message, which I feel a conversation needs to be had, especially if you're doing a review of those things. Because if we hold games to that, then we can reward games that make actual decent messages that we want to support. But there is an underlying ignorance, bias, and sometimes racist viewpoint in a lot of game designers, which we need to acknowledge. A good example of that is the fact that Tom, despite all of his reviews, has never criticized games that present ethnicities outside of stereotypical roles. We've seen games that talk about the Mayan culture, the Inca culture. We had games like Go Go Eskimo, which he covered without even acknowledging the controversy around it. And then recently, there was a game called Core of Discovery by Off Page Games, which gained a Dice Tower seal of approval. Mm-hmm. This game is all about, it's not even subtle, they say it in their promotion. This is a game about manifest destiny. And manifest, you know what manifest destiny is, right?
No.
Also, manifest destiny is an ideology that basically claims that Americans, white Americans, the colonists of white America, have the God-given authority to rule over North America, right? Okay. They have the right to annex territory and remove the indigenous populations. And they say that this is inevitable, noble, and their God-given right. That is manifest destiny.
Wow. And he covered that game.
Yes, and they covered that game. They gave it a seal of approval. And not only that, but there hasn't been a lot of talk about it. And it is obviously it's incredibly racist. It is. And the funny thing is, in fact, one of the biggest issues with America is that manifest destiny is actually rooted in their subtext of their culture, and it is always been there. And now there is this game called Core of Destiny, which has gotten a lot of attention. There was some people talking about it, going, "Hey, this is kind of messed up." But there's been a lot of people have just been ignoring the conversation because so many times board games that are incredibly problematic get ignored. If Manifest Destiny, if Corporate Discovery was a video game, there would be huge controversies and eventually it would be kicked off of Steam. But because it's a board game, it gets by with a pass. And that's the thing when I talk about where Tom's politics or his refusal to engage in politics causes him to ignore the political controversies. And I think it's a scapegoat by saying, we don't deal with politics. If you don't deal with politics, you're being a hypocrite by talking about games that indulge politics and then ignoring the political message those games are implying or conveying.
But also, we don't deal with politics. It's in itself a political statement that means my privilege matters more than your suffering. Because at the end of the day, it means, I'm not being touched by politics, so why should I bother about this? Why should I take a stance? But look, you're suffering. But we don't do politics. Yeah, but these politics, that, by the way, share the same beliefs that you do that you don't talk about. They're actually hurting me. Well, I don't do politics. So I think that stance is complete and utter bullshit. And as you say, if on top of that, you are either endorsing games that endorse politics or simply don't decry those bad points, because I can see, you know, hey, by the way, this is a fantastic game, but it's racist as shit. Just so you know, this is absolutely a disgusting, despicable message that this game comes with. I wish they had a different theme, because this is a great game mechanically speaking. I would say, yeah, dude, go for it. You're doing good job. But you're saying, oh, this is a great job. This is a great game. No matter that it's racist, I'm not mentioning that. Yeah, fuck off.
And for me, it's when we see movies and so forth. For example, a good example of this have been Harry Potter games and Harry Potter movies and Harry Potter games, video games, and the fact that there are critics and reviewers that say, no, I can't separate the game and the setting and the legacy from what its creator, the person who's profiting off of this, is saying. And I feel for it. Like I said, I don't go after people who absorb that content because they love Harry Potter. I, as a consumer, say I will no longer put a dime towards anything that could result in putting an even minuscule fraction of that dime in the hands of its creator. But I go after that. I don't go after the public, because that's not how you do things. But that's another conversation.
That's another conversation. But yeah, I completely agree.
But if I'm going to do, someone says to me, hey Chris, we want you to review a Harry Potter board game or a Harry Potter video game. If I was working at the Dice Tower and I suddenly said, hey, I'm going to do a review because I happen to have the Harry Potter deck building cooperative game and both expansions, because my wife loves that series. If I were to do a review, I was told you cannot mention the controversy of J.K. Rowling, I would say that I'm not doing the review.
Exactly.
Because that review is going to mention it. I'm going to say, look, I'm reviewing this game and its setting. I need to state that under no circumstances do I support this creator or what she represents.
One thing that we haven't said yet is that the reason why Sam Healy got into so much trouble is because he defended ICE's actions of murdering both Good and Petty. And he was okay with that. And as far as I am concerned, anybody who decries, oh my God, how dare you, poor Charlie Kirk, who is a hateful, bigoted piece of shit, but then they say, oh no, but it's okay to kill these people because, you know, they don't agree with
it was the hypocrisy. It was just the absolute hypocrisy.
But I mean, don't get me wrong, even if he was also saying, oh, you know, Charlie Kirk was a massive motherfucker, but the fact that he was actually defending the murder of two innocent people by a mob of thugs that an orange baboon orangutan president has put in there out of nothing but spitefulness, xenophobia, and racism, can go and fuck themselves with a cactus.
Yeah, well, he's also deflecting on the fact that he's a predator who has been listed numerous times in a series of documents that have destroyed the careers of everybody else but him.
No arrests about them outside the UK. But anyway, so yeah, that's why Healy got into problems. And he doubled down when he was challenged about that. And somebody asking, oh, wow, how does it taste? You know, what is it like the taste of boot? Because he's a boot leaker of the system. And he said, well, you know what? It tastes like freedom. And it's like, yeah, mate, go and find yourself.
He fell down that rabbit hole. It's just interesting, too, because that's kind of the weaknesses of the right.
Mm-hmm.
They can't help themselves.
No.
Eventually, they're going to put their foot in their mouth and they're going to say the quiet part out loud. And as publishers, you have to, because first of all, this is the double-edged sword here when it comes to it. When it comes to somebody coming out and saying these things, I come out and I say, well, like you said, you have to respond quickly saying, well, that person is gone. We do not support this and so forth. The second thing is, regardless of what your views on, you have to acknowledge the fact that your people know, like, oh, hey, I don't care what your views are. Don't tell me what your views are, but you have to know that if you spout something out there, that public outcry will bring me down, if it's going to compromise my company, regardless of whether or not we are in agreement, I'm still going to cut you loose because my company is more important than your opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And we see this too often, like Disney, which is capitulating to right wing, still cancels people who work for them if they spout right wing views, because it's easy for them to curtail that criticism by cutting out that cancer while simultaneously supporting it through the money that they spend and the quiet capitulation. And that's the situation where, as a publisher, you have to be aware of. Now, here's the thing, and it's a weird thing for me to say. If you are a right-wing game publisher and you don't give a shit what we think, well, then by all means, keep doing what you're doing.
Exactly.
And you get to take the consequences of that. But if you're someone who's on the left, because guess what? Companies, especially privately owned companies, are political by the definition that they're owned by someone who is political. And as we've spoken, your absence of taking a side takes a side in itself, especially when there's oppression involved. So my company is on the left because I'm on the left. And so I do put in that imagery. So if somebody tries to cancel me because of my leftist views, and people have tried to cancel me and give me a barrage of bad reviews because I am a person that does not believe in what they believe in, well, that's also fine. I mean, then you get people like us defending a person that's saying that's standing by their viewpoints. But for me, for example, I'm happy by the fact that of the people I work with who are affiliated with my company, all of them either do not have a social media presence or they are in agreement with my political views. Regardless, they are all smart enough to keep their mouth shut. And because I know that giving all the people I've talked to, there's probably a few of them that have deep moral objections to the choices I make. And at this point, I'm like, well, actually, my initial instinct is, after all this time, you're still friends with me? But for me, and I need to, before we kind of sum up here, I need to go back to the first topic, Dancey, very specifically, because it's one thing that I look at, because the Dancey situation and the Healy situation are very, very different.
Yes.
Right? Although they're both related with people who felt they could say something without consequence, right? Or they said something because they were triggered, they were emotional, and they couldn't stop themselves from hitting post. I have done that, where I've like typed a big thing and went, delete it, and walk away. Even though I'm right in what I'm saying, I know that sometimes, especially when, like right now, Epstein's is a perfect example of this. I'm a person who believes like there's horrific things in these documents, horrific things, and everybody who's associating with this should be laid accountable up to the fullest extent of the law. But don't invent lies. Let the evidence convicts. If you muddle it with lies, those lies have literally are like, that is how Bill Cosby got out, is because the defense took all the mistruths and they paved doubt in everybody. And so I have a lot of friends, women, who I want to support in this, that are posting things that are factually incorrect. And I'm like, please don't do that. I know you're triggered and emotional right now, but you are muddling the message by posting things that are absolutely not true. And when it comes to outside of the triggering aspects of Epstein, we go to the triggering aspects of AI. It's difficult for me, as the pragmatic person I am, and as someone who has a background in tech, I have to look at a person going, I know they're being emotional in their responses, but I know that what they are saying is factually incorrect. My issue with Dancey is that there are fragments of what he's saying that I understand. He made the mistake of wrapping it in a lot of triggering language that was going to get him into trouble. Specifically, he talks about the fact that he opens up with the triggering statement that AI will design a game without people. And he says it's not, but way down at the bottom, he talks about game publishing isn't an industry of unique special ideas, right? Which I understand. I think as I understand the subtext of what he's saying, but he said it's an industry about execution, marketing, and attention to detail. I go, no, it's not. It's a lot more than that.
Yeah.
And he says all things AIs are great at. You're wrong. There's also a completely different conversation about how bad AI actually is right now. There's a great a video I saw recently talking about guess what? Turns out AGI is probably decades away still. We thought it was like a year away. Turns out we don't know how to do it. And OpenAI, guess what? They're losing about $50 billion a year, and they will lose about $500 billion until 2029, which they say they might be profitable. So he brings up about the game industry doesn't exist because humans create otherwise unobtainable ideas. Ideas because many of the previous games exist fade into the minds of designers who produce new variants of these themes.
Of course.
That is functionally correct. But he wraps it in this triggering language. And this is something, I'm going to say something that's going to be controversial. It's unfortunately true. If you are paranoid about AI theft of your work, do not go into game design. What Dancey said was shallow and ignorant and tone deaf. But if you're trying to make the argument that he is promoting theft, I have to remind people that in game design, you cannot copyright a mechanic. Monopoly lost this fight decades ago. That's why Dominion came out.
No, but I know, but I think, and we are risking going way over time. The problem is not just about whether it's not about just about copyright. It's about replacing humans. It's about, again, my biggest beef with AI is not the copyright theft, which I do hate. It's the fact that it's hurting so many people, and you are saying that you are willing to use it in a way that's going to hurt even more people because you're willing to leave those people out of the equation so they won't be able to make a living out of it. So that's what you're saying. You're saying that the speed of making a game, you care about that a great deal more than people. Fuck off, you motherfucker. Fuck off. Anybody who puts that people behind or beyond profit can go and fuck themselves. This is pure capitalism, and I absolutely hate it. Hate it.
When I look at this situation, and this is something that Paul Gross, who's another game designer, who posted about it, and there's always this conversation specifically about AI, and there's so much anthropomorphizing of AI. Mm-hmm. AI is going to take our jobs. AI is going to destroy. AI is stealing people's ideas. AI is taking my jobs. I go, you are putting a lot of consequence and power into the motivations of something that has no motivations. Whenever someone says, AI took my job, I go, no, I'm pretty sure AI didn't do shit. That motherfucker who runs that company did it.
Exactly.
The head of Google is doing it. The head of Amazon is doing it. The head of Facebook is doing it. The head of these tech industries. If we lived in a purely socialist society that had regulation, that wasn't completely driven by the free market capitalist propaganda, that has sold slaves on the idea that that is the best life for them, we wouldn't have a problem with AI. AI would still exist because it's inevitable. But people wouldn't be complaining that AI stole my job because there would be an infrastructure in place to stop that from happening.
Correct.
It's always us. It is always our fault. So when Dancey makes a statement saying that, makes the implication that I don't need people, I will hire AI, we go, well, that's the problem. AI is the problem, isn't it? And I go, no, Dancey's the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
He quite literally put the arrow on his head. He put the target on his head.
Okay, we need to wrap it up. But before we wrap it up, I need to go back to our last topic and finish with one thing about Sam Healy, Tom Vassell, and people who defend them. One of the things that I saw in a Facebook post, because I tend to do one thing whenever I see somebody doing something horrible, I tend to go to Facebook and say, hey, look at this guy. Do you really want to be friends with him?
You do that a lot. And whenever I see you post it, I'm like, all right, who is it today?
You know,
now, thankfully, in so far, 100% of every situation you have brought up, with the exception of Dancey, which you have not posted, by the way. I don't think you've posted about Dancey.
I haven't, because I tend to avoid talking about AI.
Yeah, but for everybody else that you've posted, I'm like, I always check. And I'm like, oh, not friends with this person. I'm good.
It happens sometimes. Anyway, I tend to do that. And somebody came back to me and literally said, he did the devil's advocate. Oh, wait, no, wait a second. I need to talk with him first and find out exactly why he said that. There's a lot of people who will defend the Sam Healys, Tom Vassals, and J.K. Rowlings of the world because they like what they do. And they don't want them to stop doing what they do, so they defend them so that way they won't go away. Okay? And sometimes people defend that kind of people because they are not being nasty to you. And I get that. I really do. However, there's one thing I want to say to the people who keep saying, oh, I need to talk to him and see, both sides of the argument. And I want to know, have you actually done that? Have you actually approached this person, spoken to him, and what did they tell you? Did you agree with them? Or if they actually defended ISIS murders, have you dumped them? Because if you have gone to speak with them, they have told you and you have found out, yes, this is true, and you have gone through mental loopholes to actually still keep them here because you like what they do, you are like them. You are like them. And your opinion matters absolutely nothing to me anymore. If you really want to do devil's advocate, then do advocacy and side with the side that you should be siding on, but not just stay there in the fence. Don't find excuses. And if you want me to believe that these people are good, that these people are not the monsters that I think they are, please convince them to say in public, trans women are women, trans men are men, non-binary people exist, trans rights are human rights. If they are prepared to say that in their platforms, I will believe they are the kind of people that you say they are. But for as long as people out there are not prepared to side with trans rights, they are the people I think they are.
Yeah, and for me, like I said, I have done that, thankfully, and it's pretty straightforward. It's a pretty easy thing. I have a simple rule which encompasses everything. I think that any consenting adult should be able to do anything they want with any other consenting adult, regardless of any impediment. I'm a person who says let people love whom they want, be whom they want, live. I believe in equality, but I also believe in equity. And it's a very simple statement that encompasses it. And someone says, well, I want you to specifically say trans rights are human rights. Like, oh, fine, trans rights are human rights. And I will also include everything else. Right now, I have to specifically defend these people because they're the ones being attacked. Mm-hmm. It's the whole All Lives Matter movement where it's like, well, no, I can say All Lives Matter, but I'm saying Black Lives Matter because that's the group being attacked right now. Saying All Lives Matter muddles the specificity of the debate.
Correct.
So I say this is the specificity of the debate. And for me as a writer, I make a point of throwing in. Like I said, I write sci-fi, so I use allegory. And so I put allegories of modern stuff into my writing. It happens all the time. But for me, I think the situation with Healy and Dancey are interesting in the fact that they are similar in the fact where somebody felt that they were immune to consequence and said something that got them canceled. But the very specific arguments that they were making are very different when it comes to how they apply to society. And I find it interesting that both of these created, and the thing is, we've seen things before, and this is what we talked about James Stegmaier about, the fact that it's not just when you're a game publisher and you have employees. It's easy. If you have an employee that says something, you cut that cancer out. Mm-hmm. But as a game designer, going to what we think about advice for game design, you have to understand your message. And you also have to understand, are you okay with people knowing that message? And this is one of those situations where if you know that if you speak your mind, your company will be ruined, maybe you should rethink what those biases are and address them and talk about them. Maybe seek therapy, maybe internally reflect. If you are embarrassed about, if you are afraid people knowing what you think, maybe you should rethink why you have those thoughts. And because in our society, especially with social media being so easy just to hit send, eventually most people are going to screw up. Which means if you have a controversial thought that you believe will get you into trouble, be prepared for the possible inevitability that you will open your mouth and say it. And be prepared for the consequences that happen as a result.
Yes. Right. I think we should leave it here because we've been going on for over an hour, which means that we are still as good as talking as we used to be 5 months ago when we stopped recording for a bit.
Well, we knew this one was going to be something that was going to go off in direction. And once again, we could talk about, obviously, we don't need to talk about what Healy talked about because that's a black and white situation.
Exactly.
Like, oh, he was an idiot, opened his mouth, and now, and the thing is, we both know when he posted it, we're like, it was going to happen.
Yeah. And, well deserved this. So anyway, humans, we would love to know and hear what you think. So by all means, do leave a comment. We would love to engage in conversation with you. By all means, do feel free to leave a nasty comment so I can delete it or just ignore it, which is what I tend to do because I don't give a shit when people are nasty to me anymore. I'm made of Teflon. From that point of view, but you're welcome to email us on podcast@GMS Magazine, where, believe me, I will also delete any nasty comment, any nasty email that you send. But from next time, we will be retaking Beyond Gaming, where we are going to be talking about how to write and how to publish your role-playing game, and I'm hoping to get my arse into gear to organize some interviews in the not-too-distant future. But until the next time.
Next week, we'll have Dancey on.
No, we won't. I assure you, we will not. Talk to you soon.
Take care.